Tucked away in a corner of the state of Michigan is a small city called Kalamazoo. While the city may be known for its arts now, it wasn't always that way. What the city was really built on was celery farming and eventually greenhouses. But this isn't about all of them. This is about just one. The Schurings are a multi-generational family-owned greenhouse that began when they immigrated to the United States.
It was in the late 1800s, excuse me. Yeah, that'd be a long time. Did the normal thing, came over on the boat and settled in.
They haven't always been just a greenhouse, though. They began by growing the humble crop of celery, just as every other Dutch immigrant farmer.
In that area, whether it got to the early 1900s or not, but they had to clean the land, clear it before they could, because it's swampland basically, because of the size, that it probably took a couple of years before they could put a crop in.
But good times can only last so long. As there was business to be had, competition arose.
I think it was both California and Florida took off with a hybrid, and of course with where they are, they could grow two crops opposed to one, and therefore they could sell celery less expensive than the guys that are working their tail off for their family. But that kind of cut things back fairly fast. We still dealt with celery because we have the cold storage. We were the only people in the area with it, still have it. But the smaller growers, the ones that were left, needed their product put on the market, and we would go to Comstock, Decatur, and pick up all the celery from the guys that were still growing it, and then we would take it in and cool it and broker it.
As times became tough for celery growers, John Schuring Jr. had an ace up his sleeve.
It was gradual, but at the same time, the guys that had been growing it, and our family and everything, you could use your greenhouses for bedding plants as soon as you took the celery seedlings out and planted them in the field. So we had a head start. So he was filling out bedding plants while everybody else was still doing celery. We sold locally very, very little. The majority of it was out of state. We go down to Tennessee, Kentucky, Ohio, Indiana, St. Louis, but Michigan, you don't have a market for whatever the reason. Southwest Michigan, and I go up to Grand Rapids and everything else, had the largest concentration of bedding plant growers in the nation at one time.
With that local demand came a solution: a retail greenhouse.
Support to Ron. It was a hard job and it was a long job. So we had 4 children. That was how I supported him, was taking care of the family. There were a few exceptional times when I had to go in. One, I remember we had an ice storm and we still had glass greenhouses. And I remember picking those ice shards out of the flats. And so I got called in for things like that. But I did not do anything on a regular basis in the greenhouse up until the retail opened. But the 3 cousins felt that there was an opportunity for a local market. And people would actually come into the insurance office, which is part of the whole corporation, and they'd say, "We can see the flowers, why can't we buy the flowers?" And so it got them thinking. And so it was these three cousins that said, I think that our wives could run a retail. And so we were all raising children at that time. And when our children went into school, then they thought it was a good time to do that. But it was just the front area, which is like a rectangle. And they did build the greenhouse with this in mind. So it was a beautiful greenhouse. It was concrete floors, and we had automatic curtains and beautiful siding. And so, but it was not very big. It was pretty skinny pickings for quite a while. Nobody knew we were there, even though we had a lot of signage and balloons, and they just didn't notice us in the midst of all the greenhouses there on both sides of the road. And so it was actually marketing. We had to do flyers. We did a program called Daisy Dollars, where your local organization could buy money that would give them profits, and then people would come in and bring that, and a lot of them had never even known we were there. And that's how a lot of the customer base really was established, because then people would find us and then they tell other people, and then things got rolling. And then because they grew such beautiful flowers, and they did, it wasn't hard to sell them. We just had to get them in so they could see them, and then things took off. All the cousins' wives came from very diverse occupations and from raising families. And so we had to figure out a way to run a business. We all eventually found our niche, and then we're able to work together as a team. It was a long transition to just figure out how to make it work, but eventually we settled in and did pretty well. It was 25 years when we stepped down, Carol and I, and it was 25 years, a long time.
Well, like I said, coming in every day, seeing the crop.
Well, I love people, and I also was a gardener and loved plants, so it was a perfect job. All the other stuff was hard, but that part was easy.
Walking in, everything's closed up, so you've had, in one case, an acre full of bedding plants.
Interacting with the customers, helping them choose plants, succeed at gardening. So many people, I can't grow anything. And that was like, oh goody, I can't wait to help you.
You have just the fresh air, so to speak, with an occasional heater. It was always nice to just walk in before everything got started, knowing what you had to do and why. But, it was certainly wasn't something that I hated to do, that's for sure.
As a Christian, I believed it was my ministry. That's where God had put me. So it was always more important than just making a sale. So those were my favorite things, were the people and helping them with their plants and sometimes their lives.
After seeing this generation take over, so to speak, if they just continue to do what they've been doing for the last few years since they've started.
Well, letting it go wasn't easy, but it was time, and my hopes have been realized. We have such wonderful people.
They're raising a beautiful crop every year. They're doing everything that needs to be done, and sometimes making it easier than their forefathers did.
They continue to offer great customer service and a more personal touch, I think. And I believe that's why it continues to grow and succeed.
They're doing great. And they just need to continue doing what they're doing.
I'm always asking my friends that go in how they treat you, and they always say, fantastic, just fantastic. So my hopes are being realized. It's in good hands. Hopefully it'll continue forever.